back. I am 13, and we're going to be playing some Infect tonight. So I will admit I've never actually piloted this in person, but I had another couple escalations during the India hours. Still mildly sleep deprived and trying to hold up the streaming schedule. So Infect, this screen probably isn't telling you too much about the deck if you're already not familiar with it. There are a lot of one drops, a ton of them. Then we have a couple of other cards, but for the most part, this entire deck wants to run off of the ability to cast multiple spells for 1 mana. So what this deck is trying to do is hit for 10. Most decks like to count to 20, Infect likes to count to 10. If you make contact with an Infect creature, the player gets poison counters instead of damage, so your opponents usually take in their shocks, do whatever they need to. You do have a backup plan of Dryad Arbor or Noble Beats, but it's usually not game plan A. But these creatures are going to be your primary tool for counting to 10. Glistener Elf comes down on turn 1, Blighted Agent is unblockable. These two cards make up the color of the deck. Inkmoth Nexus, being a manland, dodges sorcery speed removal. It also dodges some of the non-land removal, like Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decay is not as common anymore, but basically, flying, evasion, land, pluses. Then we also run Noble Hierarch, the Exalted. Whenever a creature attacks alone, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If you have no other spells in hand, it turns your 10-turn clock into a 5-turn clock, as well as giving you mana for all of your instants. Vines of the Vastwood and Blossoming Defense both give hexproof. So sequencing for Infect is a little weird. Most players, when they first play Infect, don't actually sequence correctly. You're supposed to actually use your instant sorcery speed as the Infect player's opponent. Because what it does is it forces me to take these cards out of my hand to protect my creature while they're not attacking. So a lot of players will hold up their removal, they'll hold up Fatal Push, Path to Exile. They'll wait for you to commit on a card like Blossoming Defense or Vines to buff the creature, and then they end up protecting it and making it bigger, and they hit for more. I'm guessing that's not going to come up a whole lot. A lot of people playing on Magic Online really like the paper game, so they've transitioned to online, a lot of play experience, but we could potentially see it. And then other ways that we protect our creatures: Spell Pierce, just very cheap counterspell. It only counters non-creature spell, but the only creature spell that actually hits the creatures we care about are Reflector Mage, I think. I guess Izzet Static Caster as well, but just very fringe cases. Then Mutagenic Growth, Phyrexian, so you can just pay 2 life to give your creature +2/+2. Your life total doesn't matter, you're just trying to count to 10. And then Become Immense with Delve will make it so that your creature gets +6/+6. So Become Immense is one of our biggest spells. It takes a little bit of setup, but it's going to be one of the fastest ways that we can count up to 10, because you're going to start off with 1 power, get +6/+6. Then any of the other slew of cards kind of in the 1-drop column will end up allowing you to finish it off, or potentially just an extra turn. And that is Infect. So one thing I actually do want to bring up is these are 2 cards that have made Infect become less popular. So Gitaxian Probe used to be modern legal. You'd be able to pay 2 life, get a card in the graveyard you can delve out for Become Immense. You get to look at the opponent's hand to see if it's clear. If you look at their hand and you see that they have 2 removal spells, you're chipping in for 1. If you see nothing, you can just go all in. And Fatal Push is just a premier removal in black. It allows our opponents to kill our creatures for a very cheap and effective cost. And both of those have kind of made this deck less common. It used to be tier 1, but it still does things. Counting to 10 instead of 20 is quite powerful. And this hand has a lot of redundant threats, which isn't great, but we have 2 mana, a buff spell, and I'm good to do this. It's going to force our opponent to have a lot of interaction with us. And with this deck, anytime that you can, you want to run out the Noble Hierarch first, because the old adage is bolt the bird. They're going to be inclined to target the Noble Hierarch. The Noble Hierarch also makes all of our creatures better, but that might have been a reason that we want Glistener Elf, just because if this gets removed, we can follow it up with Blighted Agent, but we can multi-spell next turn, do a lot. Might of Old Kroza is a spell that we did not give a tech to. It's an instant, but if you cast it during your main phase, it ends up getting double the effect out of it. It's +4/+4 instead of +2/+2. It's really good when we have protection to help cover that, but looks like we're not there at the moment. So looking at opponent's side, they might be a budget-friendly build of something. Most of the time, nobles aren't that budget, though. Given what I see here, I'm going to go grab a basic. It's likely that we don't need it, and I might need to hold this up to go get our Dryad Arbor, but we've been hit by a Stone Rain off of this setup before, and I'm feeling just a little cautious at the given moment. But I'm going to run out a couple of threats and see what opponent can do. Alright, this is looking a lot like Pod now. Wall of Roots looking a lot more like Pod. And looking a ton like Pod. It's either that or some Eldritch Evolution build. But they're going to try to kill us with Kiki Jiki combo. Vanifair Pod is the card that is forcing all the colors from the opponent. Prime Speaker Vanifair can sack a creature to go tutor a target. Eventually they sack the right combination of creatures to go infinite and kill us with an infinite combo. Alright, so math time. Blighted Agent gets in, Exalted Trigger is 2, Mutagenic Growth is 4, Might of Old Kroza is 8. Then if opponent can't kill us this turn, which they really shouldn't be able to, we can just attack in with 2 Blighted Agents unblocked. So Might of Old Kroza, caster in main phase. Make him big. Then I'm going to be taking a shock to put out this Blighted Agent to represent lethal across 2 creatures. I can pay for Mutagenic Growth, but I don't really see much of a point to because we're going to shock anyway. Blighted Agent gets in. Pay some life, make it an 8/8. So alternatively, I could bluff a counterspell. Although I think having 2 unblockable threats means that they have to have 2 paths in hand, which I don't think that they even have 1. And then any bounce spell or hexproof would be very good for us. Basically putting on opponent to have... Geez, I don't even know at this point. I guess they could technically have Reflector Mage with Restoration Angel. Or potentially just 2 paths. We do have to make a choice here if we want to attack in with 2 Blighted Agents or a single Blighted Agent with Exalted. Which is why a protection spell would be fantastic. Also, the reason I didn't run out the land, make it look like we actually have one more thing to do. Although, we would have done it last turn, so opponent knows we're on a blank. Given how hard they're tanking, though, they're trying to find some way to piece this together. Flashing in a Pestermite or Deceiver XR could tap down one of our creatures, but that'd still put them dead on table. Yep, opponent scoops it up. So, Vanifair Pod. I don't believe they have a lot for us. That took a little longer to pull up than I wanted it to. So, 2 Path to Exiles. Deceiver Exarch can tap down our creature. Reflector Mage can bounce a creature. 2 more paths in the sideboard for this matchup. Glenalendra can counter a spell if we let it go that long. Settle the Wreckage is good to know about. And I guess Eidolon of Rhetoric could technically be a consideration. So Spell Pierce won't touch. Glenalendra. Grafdigger's Cage actually really hurts their combo because they can't Eldritch Evolution, Court of Calling, or Vanifair. The lesser known half of Grafdigger's Cage is players can't cast spells. Oh, sorry. Creature cards can't enter the graveyard, enter the battlefield. Jeez, struggling tonight. From the library, Pulse of Moross is for burn. Dismember can remove a combo piece, but I don't think we want to go that deep. Shaper's Sanctuary is for control. If they're going to try to remove our creatures, we can draw a card. Spell Pierce will hit Path, but so will Dispel. I feel like Dispel is just going to be a stronger hit than Spell Pierce against this matchup. Viridian Corruptor can hit an artifact. I don't really think we care about too many. 3 mana is just a little expensive. This is a little bit better if we're expecting our threats to get Surgical Extractioned. Then maybe just trim a Groundswell. Groundswell is one of the +4/+4 spells if we have landfall. This deck is new since Infect's become a thing, so we're probably lucky to steal game 1. We have our best hate piece, we have a piece of interaction and hexproof, so what I'm looking at here is likely a turn 1 Grafdigger's Cage, turn 2 Glistener Elf with hexproof in case they kept a removal hand. And Pendelhaven is probably one of the best cards in this deck. It also increases our clock. We can buff it before Exalted triggers. Just a really good card. Yeah, I think Grafdigger's Cage is by far our safest card here. And when they kill us, they're probably going to kill us through a combo kill, so our life total is relevant, but not super relevant. Happily take a shock here. This does not look like they want to hard cast Kiki if they are on pod. If they're not, they could just be Bant value, and we're probably heavily favored versus Bant value. But assuming this Glistener Elf lives with no removal, we are probably able to kill our opponent next turn. +4/+4, +4/+4, Pendelhaven. We'd need 1 more mana. And that was probably some poor sequencing. I could have left up Pendelhaven, then if they had something along the lines of Static Caster, I could have actually just buffed to survive the 1 damage. I highly doubt they're on Electrolyze, but Pendelhaven could save against a 2 damage hit. Grafdiggers also stops Coco if they are just Bant value. Well, opponent didn't show us anything. So we have Groundswell into Might of Old Kroza with Vines or Pendelhaven. This is looking like it's pretty close to lethal here. So sequencing could be Groundswell if they try to path the creature. They technically have 2 mana up, but we can kick Vines. Pendelhaven's coming down, I know that much. And then we've got to check to see if they want to block with the birds. I don't want to burn Might just for that reason. So let's see if we go unblocked first. And they're willing to trade Hierarch. Alright, works for me. This time leaving Pendelhaven up. This does telegraph that we don't have a counterspell up, but it does mean that we'll survive 1 damage. It also puts us on the table that if opponent wants to survive, they have to have interaction. Alright, so Pendlehaven is legendary. We can windswept into Might of Old Krosa, see what they've got, kick vines, and groundswell. So if they have nothing, we have lethal here. So I'm going to start committing for it and see what opponent wants to do. That may have been bad. That turned off Pendlehaven. But we're happy to pace ourselves. It looks like opponent wanted to Coco here, but Grafdigger's Cage is shutting it off. And I probably should have gotten in with Glistener Elf. It would have just killed a Birds of Paradise. Resto Angel. Alright, that's fine. Also means our Glistener Elf would not have survived if it attacked in. But we have Unblockable with a level of Hexproof coming up for next turn, so I like our position. So, opponent is definitely on Bant value. I'm not sure what they plan their win condition to be. It's probably Knight of the Reliquary. But we haven't seen very many spell lands, so not sure what to make of that. Alright, Deputy of Detention. He's gonna Oblivion Ring a target and everything that shares a name with it. So he's going after Grafdigger's Cage. Alright. That means they have Coco lined up. And if they tap out, they should just be dead here. Eldritch Evolution. So they can go get something for 4. It's 2 plus 2. They can get Restoration Angel. Blink the Deputy, try to take out Blighted Agent. Restoration Angel would actually give them a 3-turn clock in the air. Alright, so opponent actually didn't know what they wanted. Yep, that would do something. So Spellskite is very good against our deck. We actually have 1 main board and 1 sideboard in ours. So they can change the target of any buff spell to Spellskite as long as it's a legal target. But they have to pay 2 life for it. So, we are currently being represented on a 4-turn clock because Deputy's likely not going to get in. We'll just kill it. I'm actually tempted to go get Dryad Arbor here. Make them a little afraid that if they spend too much life on Spellskite, we'll be able to kill them. And Inkmoth is a good pickup. So, Pendlehaven, if they try to redirect this, they can pay life and attempt to, but it won't be a legal target, so it won't actually change since Pendlehaven requires a 1/1 creature. And that means Inkmoth can be on defense for that exact same reason, and they'll have to have a way to get another Restoration Angel if they want to attack in. So, Inkmoth needs to come out so it can attack next turn. And I'm going to get my chip damage in here. Is there any reason to send in Glistener Elf? It'd end up making Deputy smaller, and it'd also make them want to try to burn a spell if we try to buff it. I think Blighted Agent's fine. This also leaves up the most amount of mana for activating Ink Moth and requiring them to redirect some damage. Although at the current moment, we are very happy if they attack with Restoration Angel. They have nothing in hand, and it means it clears the way for Ink Moth to get in as well. So, happily take the 3. Oh, it won't get past birds, though. Alright. So, we have 3 here. They have blue mana available. So they won't even be paying life. That's unfortunate. If we make our land drop, we'll have to pass priority, so we won't be able to double Pendelhaven. I think we're just getting in unblockable. We block with Inkmoth Nexus, and then that means that opponent has to draw removal. Yep, sorry, that doesn't work. Again, so they can change the target of spell. Oh my gosh, words. They can change the target of a spell or ability with Spellskite. They can even point a counterspell at Spellskite, but if it's not a legal target, it won't actually resolve. As long as they're holding up blue mana, there's no reason to run out our spells. It's just not going to do anything here. Alright, so cycling with the Horizon Canopy. Friend Inkmoth is coming out to block, and they have to have removal for Inkmoth, and they do not. Alright, so take it easy game 1. If they don't have interaction for our creatures, it's usually not too hard to steal wins. It's typically the matchups that have especially non-targeted removal, like Terminus, that end up becoming pretty miserable for Infect. Just because it gets around the fact that we can give it hexproof. It also makes it so that we have to have a very specific piece to go off. Like Terminus is really good at snagging our man lands if they can set it up with Opt, or we have to have Inkmoth at 1 turn to go off when they tap out. Gitaxian Probe was really good in this deck just because you knew it cleared the way. Alright, so what does this hand do? It doesn't show that we're Infect until turn 2 if we run out Blighted Agent. We have multiple protection spells. We currently have 9 damage off the Blighted Agent on a single attack. I don't feel like we can mulligan this, but we have to see what opponent's up to figure out if we can run out Blighted on 2. We have to protect our threats, which means I'm probably bringing this down on turn 3. And I think Wooded Foothills tells the least about what we're doing. Windswept Heath means we're probably a fair deck in Modern, exactly like over here. And looks like we're actually playing against Valakut. Yep, Valakut. So they are probably going to have Lightning Bolt. That's going to be our biggest threat here. But we should be faster. Like, it shouldn't even be close. If they have Lightning Bolt, we'll die with Mutagenic Growth. We don't have a third land lined up, and we're currently running 9, 10, although Dryad Arbor doesn't really count. So 9, 13, 15, 17, 19 lands. I think we just have to hope that they don't have the Bolt. And we already went down below 18, which is Valakut math for we're dead with 6 lands. So I'm just going to take another shock here. And we will see if they've got it. Yep, they had it. Alright, well, calculated risk. Assumed it was going to happen. If we top deck a threat, we're good. Did not. We got the land that I didn't think was very plausible. We were about 34% chance to draw land. And now we have 4 Inkmoths to draw into, 3 Blighted Agents, 4 Glistener Elves. If I would have actually had the basic before, this could go get a Dryad Arbor and we could start trying to get in for regular damage. Noble's fine for regular damage, though. Opponent's going to have 6 mana next turn if they have their land drop and we're just dead. Dispel won't hit Scapeshift. On the plus side, though, this means that they're probably cycling Relic to find Scapeshift. Titan's also very bad for us. Like, if they have any threat in hand, we're pretty screwed here. Yep, so that goes and grabs 2 mountains. They shoot down our noble. We have nothing to go off of. So, is this ability? Yep. We'll draw cards anytime they hit us with any Valakut triggers, Bolt. I guess I should actually pause on that for a second. Shaper's Sanctuary. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. Considering most of our cards are either replacement threats or 1 mana ways to protect our threats, it means that we're going to draw a card, probably protect it on the spot, or at least get some card advantage ticking back up. Spell Pierce doesn't really do anything. The card we would care about would be Lightning Bolt, and we probably have plenty of ways to already protect a creature. If they want to kill us and we're at 18 with Scapeshift, they only have to tap 4 lands but have 6 of them, so Spell Pierce won't counter it. I don't think Relic hits anything we're cared about. Grafdigger's Cage cares about creatures. If they go tutor anything, it's going to be through Summoner's Pact, so it's going to go to hand and then they'll cast it. Pulsum Marasa. This is in here for burn, but there is an argument to pick up a creature after they've already killed it and gain life to go above 18, but we should probably just kill them before that. As far as cut, Spell Pierce just comes out. Dispel. Again, there's nothing I really want to counter here. I guess Spell Pierce could technically hit a Search for tomorrow. As we're on the play, that would actually time it pretty well, but it's still going to have 2 mana on the field at their upkeep when they cast it. I think this is our best bet. Spellskite in order to take a Bolt would be another consideration. I actually think I really like that, but at what cost? It looks like it'd probably be Mutagenic Growth because it doesn't grow us out of Bolt range. And I guess we're running it like that. No lands, easy mulligan. Alright, so this is all in on an Ink Moth with a single mana available. This is so bad. I think we have to go to 5. Unfortunately, this deck does not mulligan insanely well. You do end up getting a piece and protection, and that's all you really need. But you do need a critical mass of spells in your hand in order to deal 10 damage early enough. This is likely a keep just because if our opponent has no interaction, it means that we're going to be able to hit for 12. But we don't have enough supporting mana to actually pull it off. And this is a little bit more our speed. Blossoming Defense is actually a buff spell. Although we probably have to mulligan it away. Kind of looking back at the deck view, that first column just has so many things in it, and we really need a Noble Hierarch active here, so I can shuffle it away. It's not great. New Mulligan rule will actually probably help Infect, just because it'll allow you to construct whatever pieces you need and then just ship back redundant pieces or bad parts of it. Alright, and that feels a little bad. So I can run out Blighted Agent, but that doesn't really solve any problems. I guess it gets through Secure Tribuilder. And this looks like we're representing a way to protect it. Dryad Arbor is an insanely awkward... Okay, that's kind of cute. They're doing this so that we can't multiple spells to protect it without a lot of mana. Secure Tribuilder can fog a combat step, though, by blocking and then sacrificing it. We'd have to give Trample, and we don't really do that in this version of the deck. So I guess Blighted Agent's a decent threat. And Dryad Arbor is our backup plan. Currently have them on a 4-turn clock, assuming nothing happens. And opponent went deep on the Damping Sphere tank? I honestly don't even think that's great against us. Alright, well the only thing we want to cast right now is Dispel, so I'm going to run out the backup Infect creature. And you have 3 turns and we have 1 piece of interaction. I guess Dryad Arbor could get in as well, but we are representing first spell, second spell, as long as they cost 1 mana. Valakut requires 5 other mountains. Okay, well, they can't cast anything else. It's typically good form to float, but I don't have anything to do with it. That tap probably just confused the crap out of our opponent. Oh, most awkward draw ever. Alright, so opponent has no search coming off. They currently have 3 mountains. They can make 1 land drop for turn, 1 ramp spell. 5 other mountains means we have at least 1 turn before Valakut's online. So I can get in for 3, and that puts any +2 spell lethal. So I am completely on board to do that. It also leaves up Dispel because it's going to be the 2 lands paying for the 2 Nexuses. Yep. So, make you a 1/1, Flying Infector. Make you a 1/1, Flying Infector. And chip in for 3. So we are currently representing lethal. I don't think our opponent has any interaction the way that they've been playing. They're just counting on these Damping Spheres, making it so that we couldn't buff a lot. And then hopefully try to build up to Valakut, it looks like. So Summoner's Pact, they go get Primeval Titan, they make their land drop, hit Primeval Titan. No thank you. Primeval Titan would go get 2 mountains, shoot down 2 creatures. I guess we actually probably would have had lethal if we drew a spell, but... Alright. So we're going to have 2 Infectors going in. Or 1 Infector with hopefully a buff spell. I think I'd rather represent the buff spell and just get in for 1. Actually, they haven't done anything impactful. And it's not like they have 2 bolts in hand, so let's just get in for 2. Make everything a threat. And we're all in on this opponent. Let's see what you got. They had a lightning axe. Why do they have lightning axe? Is that in there for Hollow One? Alright, so anything except for one of the other, like, 5 lands in our deck? Thank you. Thank you for finally delivering. Alright. Light of Old Crows is going to make it a 5/5. And there's lethal. Alright, so need to update the match. Currently 1-1 against Valakut. We won 2-0 against Bant Flash Toolbox. I don't know. They didn't look like they were pod. Alright, so Dismember doesn't hit. Primeval Titan. Also, if Primeval Titan enters, they're pretty much winning. Spell Pierce for Anger of the Gods is feeling a little bit more interesting. I guess Dispel for Spell Pierce seems alright. Just that we don't get our board cleared. Distortion Strike making Glistener Elf unblockable doesn't really feel relevant if they're trying to wrath their board. This also feels super bad if they're on the Damping Sphere plan, just because we have to cast it on the following turn as well. Nature's Claim is not even remotely worth our time on Damping Sphere. I don't feel like that's a very strong game plan against us. This is probably just overboarding, although let's keep the invocations. So Spell Pierce for Bolt, early Bolt, or... I mean, I guess this could technically snag Damping Sphere if we care. I don't think we care, though. Shaper's Sanctuary is just going to let us redraw and try to protect. Spellskite's going to survive a Bolt. I do believe we're a turn faster, but being on the draw is a actual downside. And, oh wow, that is just so awkward. Why do we have to keep drawing Dryad Arbor? This is a one of in the deck to tutor in case we need to do beats. Or survive a Liliana Edict. I don't think we can keep this. Our only Infect creature is a land, and they've shown us Acid Moss to destroy land. And slightly awkward, but I'm happy with it. We have 3 lands with a 3-mana Infect creature, and we can protect it with Spellskite. It's going to be super slow, though. And Spell Pierce is not good enough. We need more buff spells. This hand was probably a mulligan against Valakut, but... Again, we need a critical mass of cards in our hand in order to actually deal 10 damage, and going to 5 is just such high risk when we have a low creature count. And 4 lands is like too many for this deck. So again, opponent can go very aggressive with their life total. It's pretty rare that we use our backup plan of Dryad Arbor / Noble Hierarch beats. And by the time we could pull that off anyway, they're going to be pretty deterministic with their kill. And we drew another land. I'm getting upset at you, deck. We only have 19 lands, I think, when I counted last. Alright, well, we go get basic. We have passed 18, so 6 lands will be lethal, and they're getting pretty close. Spellskite can at least redirect a couple of those if we hold up blue, but that's not a winning line. This at least turns it from 3 damage to 2 damage. And as I stated against Bant, so we could technically redirect this Search for Tomorrow to Spellskite. We just pay 2 life for nothing, though. It's not a valid target, so this doesn't switch at all. Okay, well that's a good target for Viridian Corruptor because this is not a May ability. You have to actually target with it. So we would have to destroy our own Spellskite. So thank you, opponent. That actually does exactly what I want it to do. And I really don't want to take the shock. Opponent looks like they're slow rolling a little bit. This is going to go to 4, then they'll be at 5. Then if they have any ramp spell, it's going to be really bad, but we ended up having a slow hand here. Just unfortunate, but it's one of the costs of running Infect. Oh, and they had a second Valakut. Okay, so we're having a decent shot here. Unfortunately, Sakura Tribe Elder is going to fog our Viridian Corruptor this turn, but Inkmoth is a pretty decent backup plan. So let's go Viridian Corruptor beats. And by that, I mean Steve, sack, and then go get a land and have things go horribly. Yep, as expected. Alright, that's mountain number 4, so next mountain is going to be number 5. Then any following mountains are 6 damage pointed anywhere they like. Ooh, okay, so if we draw a +4, we can win here. Oh, that's a beautiful +4. Alright. So, made our landfall drop, so this is going to be +4. Then, oh, they don't even have anything, so GG's. I can't imagine they have a flash blocker. I probably should have waited until nothing went unblocked, but Alright. So that does technically let them live for one more turn. So they have to change it to Spellskite. Yep. So one of the lines I actually could have taken there was I could have forced the Blossoming Defense on the stack to Spellskite, and then Ricochet Trap would force them to move it somewhere else. But my sequencing here was to give this Hexproof first to make sure that it would resolve so they wouldn't be able to target it. And so it'd just be stuck on Spellskite. Again, not a legal target. That's all fine. So I don't have another thing. I'm just going to get the last thing in so that Inkmoth is lethal. We do have Pendlehaven to buff it, but we'll hit for 9. And then they have to top deck something because they clearly are holding interaction for us. So this is going to be 6 damage wherever they feel like it. And it's their draw for turn, otherwise they wouldn't have run out the Valakut before. Interesting, they're not going to make us pay to redirect. Alright, well you could have gotten 4 damage on us, but I suppose that works. It also may have been correct for them to hold the fetch land depending on what's in their hands that they could hit Inkmoth Nexus. Oh, but they just have the Scape Shift. Alright, so they need to have... I'm just going to let them resolve it. Sometimes they don't have enough mountains, and they have shown us a lot here. The math is going to say that if they sack... Oh, it's only like 3? Okay, well, they need to have 6 triggers, and they've got them. I'm not going to make them click through it. There's no point to. All right, Scape Shift takes the win. That was unfortunate, especially because without the Spell Scout on the table, they wouldn't have been able to Ricochet Trap, but lessons learned. So currently 0-0 for match, currently 1-1. Infect is a nice quick little deck though. As I stated, you can't really see too much of this list because there's so many 1 drops and all that, but the Become Immense is actually a really, really good card in this deck because as we're casting these spells, as they're killing off our creatures, we can give +6/+6 and that'll end up making most of our creatures survive. Mutagenic Growth is also just fantastic. I know there's a video quite recently of Saffron Olive losing to 6 Mutagenic Growths on a Monastery Swiftspear with Become Immense. When you're only counting to 10, this is just such a lethal package. But this is our creature suite. Inkmoth is secretly good against sorcery speed. I don't think there's any secret there. Infect was really a big thing for a while, but Fatal Push and the Band of Cataxian Probe really weakened where it's at. And this hand actually looks quite beautiful. So what this is turn 1 Noble Hierarch, turn 2 Blighted Agent, holding up Pendlehaven for a small shock, or holding up, I guess, +2/+2. It's not great, but it's good enough. If they have no interaction, it's a turn 3 kill. And we're on the play, which is super important for this deck. Pendlehaven 100% gives away what we're doing, so starting on Noble. Pendlehaven is a very, very good card, and I know it's been said more than once. Oh, don't discard our Blighted. Oh, that works. Although that means that this is going to be a hard matchup. Especially without blue, this is going to be a super rough matchup. If this tapped for colorless, though, more people would feel confident playing it. If our opponent's on Lingering Souls, like, even Lingering Souls can get a lot out of Pendlehaven. Wow. Alright. I did not realize how badly we needed blue here. So opponent looks like they're on just black-white, which means we're probably playing against tokens or pox. Oh, give us blue. Please do it. You know you want to. Oh, thank you. There's no reason to float. Oh, we don't have a basic. Lame. Alright. Yeah, this is looking a lot like the stock black-white tokens list. Got a Dryad Arbor. Alright, so Dryad Arbor beats are on. Opponent's Dark Confidant has been very kind to them so far, though. Yep, there's the Lingering Souls. This means you can't attack me, and I also keep my mana and my only threat. You also don't get a land, also known as Strip Mine. And more green cards. Alright, so Might of Old Krosa, we'll put them on chump block duty. Right now they're looking like they want to recycle this Nihil Spellbomb. They could have Lingering Souls this turn, and that actually probably would have been their best bet. This Lingering Souls is also going to give them a lot of turns on chump block duty, so I'm just going to start with Might and threaten 5 damage, potentially take their Bob off the table. When they're running a deck with Fatal Push and Path and Discard, I kind of just need to make sure that they don't have the card advantage engine to just lock us out. We've already fallen very far behind here, but yeah, they have to trade the Bob. If they take the 5, go down to 12, and then flip something like a Sorin, they end up just so far behind. And they did indeed recycle the Nihil Spellbomb. That's only relevant for our Become Immense. We have a lot of stuff to stock, assuming we get there. And you get your pick, opponent. Funny enough, I think it has to be the Blighted Agent. Yep, if we hit blue, we could have gotten in for a lot of damage, potentially killed them unblockable. Well, now they have our Dryad Arbor in check. And so they're going to be on chump block duty anyway, so I'm going to get in with Dryad Arbor here. They're going to have enough Lingering Souls tokens that this is never going to be relevant, so trading one of my cards for one of their spirits is just the... Yeah, that's a shame, Scoop. I will repeat, I work in IT, India escalations. I am running on fumes at this point, like purely caffeine. Alright, so Shaper's Sanctuary is a for sure in. This is, again, whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. We give it hexproof. We continue just netting more cards. Pulse of Marasa to pick up our creatures is not going to be great here. Again, this is in for burn, but they're going to have Path to exile our stuff, so it's not going to be nearly as good. We need a lot more counter magic. Mutagenic Growth won't protect against anything. It's nice for cheesing out wins, but if this isn't going to save your creatures, then it doesn't really do anything productive for you. Then I'm guessing I'm just shaving on one of each of the 4 mana +4s that are conditional. I'm actually guessing that Groundswell is better than Might of Old Krosa, but they're both conditional, so I'm not sure what is correct. If somebody's an Infect Master, feel free to comment or put in chat. Again, this is my first time actually running the list. I did play against it a lot back in the day when Infect was at its prime. And we have 2 blue sources in this hand. Ha! We learned, opponent. We learned that we need 2 blue sources. Alright, let's see if they push the bird. Noble Hierarch is such a good Birds of Paradise. And they don't have anything. Alright, well... Again, so they are not on Bolt. They're on Push or Path. Because of that, I don't have any hexproof. I only have grow spells, so I'm just going to commit a lot to my board. and see what sticks. It's very possible Noble Hierarch's going to be going in for a lot this turn. And I'm not really putting it past opponent to have Mana Tithe, so Blighted Agent first. I care less about the Noble Hierarch. Mana Tithe will counter unless I pay 1. It's a time-shifted 4-spike. Alright, so I think we win? We definitely won. Alright, so first things first, target creature gets +1/+2, because it's a 1/1. Then Might of Old Crowsite in our main phase. Then Groundswell, because we had Landfall. And swing in for 10 unblockable. Yep. That is Infect right there. That is the power of Infect. Alright, so white-black value / tokens, currently 1/1. And that's exactly what we want to do. Our opponent taps out for a Bob and they die. Now they're going to be looking for a more interactive hand. And we have no colored sources, so that's going to be an easy mulligan. Alright, now this is looking like a keep. We have Blighted Agent and Distortion Strike, which is a little bit of a non-bow, but we're going to be starting on a turn 1 Shaper Sanctuary, which means that if they try to kill our Blighted Agent, we're just going to draw a card. If they're on discard, we're horribly screwed, but I don't want to go much lower. We need that critical mass to continue going. And I don't want another land. Again, this deck functions mainly on 2 mana. Sometimes it's good to have 3, but I just need to be able to cast my Blighted Agent and become Amends / Groundswell / Might. Noble is really good in this strategy, but alright, so second Shaper Sanctuary is actually super tempting here, but I'm just going to go ahead and go get my Blighted Agent out. This is weak to discard, which they probably don't have, but if they at least kill Blighted Agent, I'll be able to draw a replacement card. And if we untap, then that means that we have Spell Pierce and Groundswell and all the fun things. Yep. Alright, so always yes, always yield. Yeah, that Vines is a little late, but Windswept. That will be getting us a Dryad Arbor, which means I need the Shaper Sanctuary out. And then hopefully Bob flips a 6 mana Sorin. That would be fantastic. So the general logic is if you can counter the spell, you want to counter it because they could just take the counter spell. But I can't actually counter this, so it looks like they get their choice. Likely taking Vines, because Hexproof is actually really relevant, especially when we're drawing 2 cards for their removal spell. Yep. Vines is more mana intensive, but it's a higher quality card. Then gonna go get the friendly neighborhood Dryad Arbor. Dryad Arbor's in here for this matchup, but it's for Liliana, not for creature beats, but I'll take what I can get. So I'm going to make him unblockable, expecting to be able to make him unblockable next turn. Our opponent knows about the Spell Pierce, which means it loses a lot of effectiveness, but I can at least get in for, that's going to be 6, and Bob's going to be damaging themselves. Right now we're ahead on clock with a tree. And of course there's a path. We'll be drawing 2 cards though. Hopefully one of them will be hexproof. If they Field of Ruin here, yeah, that works. Alright, so that didn't do what I wanted it to. We were supposed to draw some counter magic or some hexproof here. But that's fine, we'll go grab a basic, we'll fetch out a shock, play our Noble Hierarch, and have it set up. Alright, and again, I can't counter that. Which means Spell Pierce is likely going away. If we had a second Dryad Arbor, we would actually be super close to killing them. The Shambling Vent is also representing lifelink, that's something to keep in mind. Yep, and without a creature, things are looking a little bleak. Do the sideboard tech like a boss, though. I want this in my graveyard, so I'm going to make Dark Confidant unblockable. You're 1 turn too late, Blossoming Defense. Alright, so on the table for 4, and they're going to gain 2 life, so it's a 6 life swing. And this is a Strip Mine. Alright, so I'd love to be able to counter the Drain 2, but that's not going to happen. So we're still on the table for 4. And there's a Gideon. Alright, going downhill quickly. Their Bob was insanely nice to them. My Bobs are never that nice. I just wanted to flip an Emrakul and it didn't happen. Alright, and a Glistener Elf is a little bit of a shot. Although not much, because if they just activate Gideon, activate a Shambling Vet, and swing in. Yep. Super dead. Alright, and that is 1 down for Black-White. I think that's supposed to be the Super Friends list. We didn't see too many of the tokens. Typically that list is running anywhere between like the 4 Lingering Souls to 4 of the Spectral Processions, and they're running the 4 mana Sorin to give all the creatures +1/+0 emblem. Vault of Archangel gain lifelink, but we didn't see any of that. We just saw Bob flipping lands and removal spells. And our Shaper Sanctuaries didn't even give us counterspells or hexproof. But that was definitely the matchup that shows a lot of the weaknesses of Infect. We don't end up getting any of the removal suite that... Sorry, opponents get the removal suite that they were missing before, and we lose the knowledge to go all in. Paying blue for Peak is an actual real cost in this deck, and it's not nearly as good as Gitaxian Probe was when you're just trying to race for that turn 2, turn 3 kill. It did make us lower our curve so that we don't have as many of the Become Immenses. It made it so that we weren't cycling and seeing more cards. Like, this is 4 lands, and again, the Dryad Arbor, I think we've drawn that all but 1 game so far. Blighted Agent with no hexproof is not something I can keep with this, though. Like, 4 lands is bad. The Dryad Arbor makes it a single land. We're on the draw, and I'm very tempted to keep this. If we had a single land, this hand would be nuts. If we go to 5, we lose a critical mass of spells. If we don't draw a land, we just lose, but our opponent won't know what's up, and we can hopefully still game 2. I think I have to mulligan. Oh god. Funny enough, that's actually a clock. And that's protection for our clock. Alright, 4-lander! Alright, well, this is going to tell opponent what we're doing, but not much to be said about it now. We mulled to 4. Bolt, push, no? Brutality. If you Burning Inquiry and we draw Dryad Arbor, I'm going to be pissed. Oh, Steamkin's not bad. Alright, so Glistener Elf gets in for 2. We make it a... The problem is this card actually gets really bonkers really fast. So I think what we have to do is just go all in here. They're saying that they don't have the removal spell, so... Oh, I was supposed to cast that. Oh well, we'll just hold up Blossoming Defense. Because they're going to have removal, and they just wanted to get the counter for the removal. They're Bushwhacker? I horribly misjudged this. I was expecting this to be like Experimental Frenzy Storm. Please attack with all your creatures. I think we kill you if you do. So that'll be 4, 6. If we draw a land... No, we need a Mutagenic Growth. Alright, and they're smart enough to keep a Bushwhacker back. And that's not a card I want to see. So, currently on the table for a lot. Let's see if I can force this block, though. Alright, the dream is they go for a bolt, and they try to go all out, and they come up 1 point of damage shy. We end up Blossoming Defense, and then crack back for potentially lethal. We just had to mulligan way too far to the ground. Yeah, I don't really care about that. Bushwhacker's going to give them 3 mana. They're also going to be swinging in for 8, 10. Anything in hand is basically lethal. Six, 8, lethal. Wait, I think that's lethal. 3, 7, 5. Yep. Alright. Don't keep a 4. Don't keep a mull to 4. Pulse of Marauders is good here. It means that we can pick up our creature and gain some life. Spell Pierce and Dispel and all that are terrible because they just don't really net us anything. They're mostly creatures. Shaper's Sanctuary does nothing. Viridian Corruptor is slow, and again, Mutagenic Growth is our fastest kills, which we actually might need to keep because we're racing, but it doesn't actually protect against Bolt. Spellskite seems pretty decent, but might just be a little bit on the slow side. I'll trim the spell, keep the Spellskite. And this is a race. We are a little bit of a higher quality deck, but they have just as explosive of starts. This is all in on the Glistener Elf. Hope they don't have Bolt on one. If they don't, we're pretty solid. Blighted Agent's the ace in the hole here just because it's unblockable. They can't leave any of their garbage creatures back to block. Hey! Not a Bolt. Alright, so Groundswell and Blossoming Defense is +6, so that'd be 7 damage. Vines, if we kick it, is 4, so that's going to be our turn 3 play more than likely. And 100% playing Noble. I need my blue in case we draw a Blighted Agent. Noble comes down. Swing in. Groundswell. So I'm trying to do this before blockers. They showed that they didn't have a bolt or didn't care. And Noble can block if they have an insane start. It's not likely, though. Ooh, that spell gets pretty nifty. So Blossoming's +2, Vines is +4, so Glistener gets in, gets +4/+4, survives, kills both if they try to double block. If they don't block, we win, so they're forced chumping or losing their board state. Just one. So I guess that's Blossoming. We can actually Spellskite, Blossoming, Spellskite, Vines. Yeah. I think that means no Spellskite this turn. Or Vines can just be hexproof if it comes to it, but Spellskite should be able to protect the Glistener Elf. So they don't have Ghost Quarter. I care about my life total. And I want a potential blocker. And here comes the Surge. Oh, they went with Experimental Frenzy? That works for me. I guess that's a reason for Spell Pierce. They were on the Experimental Frenzy. That is the best draw I could have possibly gotten. So I have to do this before the Exalted trigger. I can do it with it on the stack, but it really doesn't matter. And this means Glistener Elf is going to be threatening lethal pretty much until the end of time, so they have to chump block. Unfortunately, they'll go through most of their deck here, but Distortion Strike is great, Blighted Agent's great. Inkmoth is fantastic. So good. So they're going to be chump with Bushwhacker and then try to Storm kill us next turn. So what they're going to be doing is they can play cards from the top of their library, and they can't play from hand. But they're going to be casting cards and getting counters on this Runaway Steamkin. They can cash in 3 counters to get 3 red mana. Cards like Burning Tree are mana neutral, but because of the 1 mana they're getting off the Steamkin, they'll end up gaining mana. So depending on how hard they go into this, they could eventually play the entire top of their deck, or at least until they find a second land. And they're going to have to kill us this turn. Or leave a Bolt on top and get us to 2. No, that doesn't even do it because we still have blue available. So we're basically just hoping that they get to 2 lands before they can kill us. Meanwhile, like, this is netting them 1 mana while still not costing a card out of hand. This is getting them an additional mana off of it. These Bushwhackers are giving +1/+0 and haste to all the creatures that enter the battlefield. I don't even think they've hit their first land yet. But this must be a card that they can't cast because they're pausing. Which might mean it's a second Experimental Frenzy. Oh no, they're sacrificing their lands to create tokens. Okay, this is quite bad for us because they're going to be getting 2 3/3 elemental tokens, and then if there's a Bushwhacker on top, they can even shuffle now. And they get a redraw. So this was Experimental Frenzy Storm. It was just the Bushwhacker version. This was one of Saffron Olive's lists. Alright, well, things are going at least a little rough for them. As long as they don't give these tokens haste, I think we're pretty safe. Because that's 9, but I get a chump block with 2, 12, 15, 17. I'm okay with that. I'm going to be doing Inkmoth Nexus anyway. Noble Hierarch would have been the better target there because I can block with it. I guess I could have spell skited it, but I really don't care. If I'm keeping a bolt off spell skite with that gut shot, it's well worth my time. Alright, well, that looks like the end of it. Huh. Alright, so what can I do here? Okay, free block for 3, negate 6, that doesn't have trample. We're on the table for 9. Seems good. That way we don't get cheesed out by multiple bolts. Yep. There we go. Alright, took game 1. Actually, I think we lost game 1. I can't even remember at this point. Alright, what does this mean? I like Spell Pierce for Experimental Frenzy just because that's bad. Dismember for Steamkins looking a little more interesting. I don't really think that's something I want to do though. One of the fun interactions with Shaper Sanctuary and Spellskite is if they target one of our Infect creatures, we get the trigger to draw a card, then we redirect to Spellskite. Spellskite becomes the new target, and we get to draw a card. You cannot repeat that over and over again. Once Spellskite is targeted, it won't switch. Viridian Corruptor can only hit an artifact, not the Experimental Frenzy. Oh, Grafdigger's Cage. Derp to derp. So Grafdigger's Cage will make it so that they can't cast cards off the top. Wow, so that means 4 cuts. I think that means the 4 Mutagenic Growths this time. The Spell Pierces might be hitting too hard. Cage is just better. I don't know. I'm good to go for a split of these. And what is with all the super mana intensive hands? So this dies to Bushwhacker pretty hard, but it has a hate piece and a very good hand otherwise. I'm going to get yelled at for this, but I'm keeping it. We know what our turn 1 play is. Like, they have to have Smash to Smithereens. If we draw a Forest, we have a different turn 1 play, but it really doesn't... I don't think they ever flashed that back last game. And they had floating mana at the end of it. Dude, the mana in this deck is not cooperating with me tonight. Alright, well, opponent just F6 through their turn, so... Breeding Pool in case we get... our friend Blighted Boy. I don't actually say boy a lot. I'm just very tired. Alright, Burning Tree gets a redo, probably getting a... Alright, Wild Cantor is a redo. Again, all these cards end up netting the mana off of a Steamkin. So, Groundswell plus... Yeah, that works for me. So Groundswell is going to be +4/+4. Ink Moth is going to get the Exalted trigger, hit for 6, and then any of the +2 should be lethal. So I might even just run out both of the Glistener Elves because it just gives us blockers in case they try to explode next turn. They can't go off their Experimental Frenzy, but yeah, I'm fine with a basic. I don't think they run Stone Rain. They could technically sacrifice the Wild Cantor for Bolt. That's why I paused there for a moment. And I miscounted mana. I forgot that this actually has to attack. We can only run out one, but acceptable by my standards. So Exalted Ink Moth is going to get in for 8, which means they're on a 2-turn clock. Any buff spells should be lethal at that point. Opponent is representing 3 mana at the current moment, but they have not made their land drop yet. Yeah, that's fine. So I did missequence last turn. I was supposed to run out the Ink Moth to pay for Ink Moth. Then that way this one would be able to attack as well. Alright, so opponent still has 2 red available, but Vine should actually... Oh. Alright, so newly controlled adds mana. Not newly controlled becomes a creature. Then I guess Vines actually gets blown out by Lightning Bolt, which they didn't have last turn. I'm just going to kick it. We're here to go for it. Woo! Alright, so Experimental 8-Whack, I think is the technical name for that deck. Took the win. We were basically playing the fair strategy of the very quick kill. They were playing the unfair one by cheating on mana, playing off the top of the deck. I think Infect is stronger just because we get blue and we get more interaction, we get stronger man lands. They get the ability to shuffle, but they're very dependent on the top of their deck. They probably could have killed us in game 2, but they just couldn't really close it. Here we have Misty into Noble into Glistener Elf, and a redundant threat as well as protection. Good enough. Plus the lands are also Infect creatures. And this one's to cash out. So I'm not going to be surprised if this either cashes out or doesn't cash out. This is a very competitive, strong deck. And we raise Storm. They did get the play, which means might be dependent on hands, but we're also going to be swinging in with Glistener Elf pretty quickly here. And need to get blue just in case they do actually have their Echoing Truth, Unsubstantiate, Bounce Spell, Bolt. But we're going to have Glistener Elf next turn with... I guess Noble Hierarch, Ink Moth. Means we won't have protection up, but we can at least go for Ink Moth the following turn. Viridian Corruptor probably not going to have a target here, so we should keep in mind that if we cast Viridian Corruptor, we have to do it before we animate an Ink Moth Nexus. Oh. Well, that's fine. Alright, so Ink Moth, Noble, and Glistener Elf. So this is looking more like Phoenix than Storm. Pyromancer's Ascension is in the Thing in the Ice Manamorphose deck from a while back, but most of these lists have adapted into the Phoenix list, which means they're probably on Gut Shot, Bolt, all the nasty things I really don't want to have to fight against. Faithless Looting is looking significantly more like Phoenix. They fetched. I should have just known they were Phoenix. Sleight of hand threw me off, though. And they're already getting a counter. Alright, so if opponent doesn't interact with us, how can we do here? We do 3, 4, or 5, 7. So with one of the +4 spells, we can kill them. That seems pretty good, although they're going to find a land here, which means we might be using this Mutagenic Growth defensively. Or need the mana for Inkmoth. And they're on Thought Scour. Does their Phoenixes come back? That was Faithless. Yep. Alright, so we'll see if they're smart enough to leave one on defense. They do. And that is one of the best things I could see. So now we have an unblockable 2/2, 3/3, 4/4, 6/6, 8/8. And something will be unblockable the following turn. So it's on opponent to kill us here. And as long as they're tapped out, I think I want to go for this. So this is going to take it up to 8, which means pretty much any buff spell on the Inkmoths or Exalted on the Inkmoths should be lethal. Or the Viridian Corruptor would be lethal. Alright, so Viridian Corruptor, I won't hold up the Blossoming Defense for that. So I want to say Mutagenic Growth for Gut Shot. I think that's where I'm at. That's probably my best line, and an Inkmoth can block this turn. Because these lists typically run Gut Shot just for a single damage. If they end up having Bolt with Pyromancer's Ascension active, that means 6 is coming at me. Then 6 on the ground, they need to find 2 more damage, and I can also block 3 of it. Alright, well that's not active yet. But that's never all they ever do with that. Alright, now that's active. If they hit a land drop, anything is doubled. I think Bolt is the worst card for me here. Gutshot's also quite bad just because it can remove so much of my board. And they discarded a Drake. Well, that's not direct damage. But drawing 2 cards can definitely find a Gut Shot. Especially because they're going to see at least 4 cards. Well, opponent's digging. The way that Rebound works is that we're going to be able to cast it at our upkeep, which means I'm probably going to target a... Oh, so they get to see exactly how dead they are? You do you, opponent. You should have waited until draw step for that, but that's fine. The Rebound says that we exile it and recast it at our next upkeep, which means I'm going to be able to make Listener Elf unblockable, give it +1/+0. It's going to get 2 Exalted triggers and be lethal on its own. This might have been just that they could see our deck. It's quite unlikely that they still think they can kill us. They have to have 2 gut shots. They're also thinning our deck nicely for us. I didn't want to draw any of those 3 Misty Rainforests. Yep, go get them all. Not even going to try to get in? Alright. Opponent doesn't know that card, so I'm not going to reveal it yet. Alright. For this matchup, Grafdigger's Cage doesn't really do a ton. It does allow us to stop them from getting Phoenixes back and recasting. Faithless Looting, I'm not overly concerned with that. I do really want the Dismembers, though. Dismember will allow us to kill a Thing in the Ice. Thing in the Ice flipping a buffed creature is one of the ways that we lose pretty easily. They're also going to have a lot of removal. I want Dispels. I'm less concerned about soft removal of Spell Pierce. They're not going to have anything along the lines of like a sorcery. They might have Anger of the Gods, but most of the time people bring in Anger of the Gods against Phoenix. Shaper's Sanctuary is always a consideration. They have Gut Shot, Lightning Bolt, Abrade, etc., etc. Spellskite loses a lot of value where there's Abrade, but I think I need to be able to protect my threats. They won't have any artifacts I care about. Viridian Corruptor can just come out. I don't want to have to target my own Cage or my own Spellskite with it. Distortion Strike came through kind of clutch there. I feel like I need to have that just because they do have Thing in the Ice. Mutagenic Growth we'll save from Gut Shot, but that's about it. Might of Old Kroza actually feels quite bad here just because I have to cast that in my main phase, which gives them more opportunities to kill my creatures and less to, in response, save them. They are going to be playing like a control list. I think that means no Cage and probably Trim Mutagenics. Again, I'm not sure if that's right. If anybody in playing Infect has actually good knowledge on that, please comment/chat. This feels like a little bit of a cluster just trying to survive their random shenanigans. And this Dryad Arbor has been in like all but 2 opening hands at this point. So you need to go away. And awkward. So this hand gets really good depending on how well they are hating our hand. They kept a pretty fast 7. So I'm thinking Noble into some interaction. I just won't cut it. I have to go lower. And no threat. Nothing. Keep? Yeah. Game 3. That was painful. Alright. I need this for Thing in the Ice. It's just that simple. Seeing 2 in hand was awkward. This Dryad Arbor has been the biggest pain. This actually could probably be a cut in this matchup. I don't really want to go down lands, and this is our backup plan, but this is probably our least reliable plan in this matchup. I mean, what do we even do with this? We drew 2 Dismembers again. So we can Shaper's Sanctuary, go get a Dryad Arbor, try to do Dryad Arbor beats and lose to 2 Phoenixes on turn 2 like their deck likes to do. Wow, this has been... I mean, I personally don't want to play this matchup, but this has been insanely painful. All we need is an Infect creature and 1 to 2 lands, and we're not even seeing that. We're suffering worse than Bogle's players do. So Shaper's Sanctuary will hopefully draw us out of a bad hand, especially if opponents got interaction. Hopefully, if we draw something, we can protect it with Spellskite and or Blossoming Defense and slowly build up La Resistance. But considering this is going for cash out, this should be a pretty decent representation of where I feel like it's at in the meta. So Infect is a powerful deck. Infect doesn't like being interacted with much. They can be interacted with a little bit, but not much. And a lot of the decks right now are doing very unfair things just about as fast. I had the feeling that if we were racing, Phoenix would actually put up a pretty darn good fight, but also have Gut Shot for us, Lightning Bolts, and Thing in the Ice. So you can have that utility or have some conditional protection or some conditional card advantage, but it's likely not going to cover what you need it to do. Opponent just turn 1 Faithless Looting, bend a Phoenix, and an Ascension. The Ascension means that their hand is stocked beyond belief. And we'll see if they have the Abrade. If they do, it's probably just GG's. If they don't or don't care, Mutagenic Growth might do a thing or two. They're not going to multi-spell to protect, or to kill Spellskite. Shaper's Sanctuary will make us draw 2 cards and draw us out of our mulligan. There's the Thing in the Ice. So this will be flipping and attacking us for 7, bouncing our creatures to our hand. Ha! Fear the Spellskite. Battle of the 0/4s. So the funny thing is they can't block or will kill Thing in the Ice. Yep. As expected. No blocks. Our deck is full of pump spells. So if we had 1 more mana, we could actually hit them for 8, take them down to below 10. Dryad Arbor could have done some work there. But now that they've untapped, if they had Manamorphose, Gut Shot, Surgical, and 2 1-mana spells, they can flip Thing in the Ice after we commit to a creature. Them beating in with a 7/8 is probably going to race our potentially +8 damage on an Infect creature. 2-turn clock, 3-turn clock. 3-turn clock with Disruption. Meanwhile, they're cantripping, and we're just like, do you want to try to target our Spellskite? Please and thank you. We'd love to draw a card. They just get levels of filtering and looting. I've said it before, I'm kind of frustrated with the Phoenix deck. It's just very powerful and quite consistent. What it can do on any given random draw is just very powerful for what we should be expecting to see. Manamorphose is a very powerful card. Faithless Looting is a very powerful card. They've been kind of testing the water with these effects that do multiple spells, and Phoenix was just enough to put that archetype on the map, and it might have come in overpowered when they actually got all the pieces from the last couple of sets trying to incentivize you to cast multiple cards. Well, that's not quite what we want. Still no blocks, opponent? Be cool. Alright. Well, more than likely our Spellskite's coming back to hand. We're going to get hit for 7. We can run out a replacement Spellskite, but it will die pretty quickly. If we draw a land, we can make it a 4/8, survive a single attack, but that's going to take 2 cards out of our hand. Yep, Faithless Looting means Phoenixes are coming in as well. Hey, this is a horror! Oh, knowing that, I probably would have stayed back. You learn something new every day. So, Thing in the Ice. No counters transform it. When it flips, return all non-horror creatures to their owner's hands. And this is a horror. Fringe knowledge of Modern just increased for me today. But we're getting hit for 916. So this turn was just Thought Scour into Faithless Looting, so any 1 or 0 mana spell is going to kill us. Technically, if they just attack in with the Phoenixes and the Awoken Horror, it won't kill us. We'll go to 1, but I'm going to Mutagenic Growth. Go out on my own terms. It's not like we're getting even remotely close to surviving this. Oh, they got all 4 Phoenixes. Achievement unlocked. They left back the Awoken Horror. Do they think that we have like a flash infect or something? They need to block if this doesn't succeed. Alright, so we're taking 12. Ow. I still can't quite do it. Oh, wait, yes I can. I know, right? So, hold control. I'm going to Mutagenic Growth Pain Life. And then I'm going to change the target. I think I can't kill myself with this, though. Ha! That one's with mana, because I can. Oh, now I have to click same targets. That might have been short-sighted. Oh, never mind. It goes to the Spellskite. Yeah, we dead. This is the problem I see with Modern at the current moment. So I really love Legacy as a format. It's hard to ruin, though. The power level of cards is kind of locked in some archetypes, and it's been thoroughly vetted over the years. It's, I don't want to say a stealth format, but it's pretty locked in. So typically when somebody sees a new card like Lavinia and it looks interesting, they might try it or think about it or think of what it stops. Like, cards have to be pretty pushed to make an impact. Leovold, Fatal Push are probably the more recent ones. It did shake up the meta a little bit, but more than that, it was the banning of Deathrite Shaman. With Modern, we have a little bit of an open playing field. It allows me the opportunity to brew some decks, have some fun, break down what is absolute jank. Like, I was running Doubling Season Planeswalkers, and I almost cashed out that. Like, I did cash out Dragons. Infect does something very linear. It's quite easy to interrupt, and it's not on the power level of being able to attack in for 19 damage on turn 4 while casting anywhere between 1 to 4 spells every turn while that's going on to craft, sculpt your hand, and interact with your opponent. Yes, we mulliganed hard, but Phoenix is a very powerful, very, like, you let them sit and they will be quite deterministic with what they do, and I'm getting a little frustrated playing against it because it's at least once or twice a league, but I suppose there's always the argument of get good, realize it's part of the meta. It's hitting meta shares that Splinter Twin was, but Splinter Twin forced you to interact, where Phoenix kind of just forces you to play Graveyard or Bridge. Bridge is making a huge resurgence. It's probably only going to go up with all the Planeswalkers coming out in War. But this is not about Phoenix. This is about Infect. So this deck, excuse me. I didn't quite hit muting time. Alright, so this deck, if I actually go back to the screen capture, I think I still have this pulled up. Back when it had Gitaxian Probe and could check things, it was quite powerful. It knew exactly what to do, it knew exactly how to sequence things. It could set up a turn. deterministic kill on turn 2 or 3 kind of reliably while knowing what your opponent had. When Gitaxian Probe got banned and no longer fueled the graveyard, it really hurt its strategy. Fatal Push, as well as things like a Braid and these cards that really punish creature strategies, have really hurt this deck. So the creatures that are coming to mind here are Meddling Mage, Thalia. Like, most decks are coming stocked for those because humans is part of the meta. Spell Queller, Spirits. Like, part of the casualties, that's not the right word. Part of the splash damage, that's not the right word either, but it's the right mentality. Part of the splash damage is that when you're investing in a single creature, when you have to have a wide suite of removal, this deck got so much worse. So people are packing like Path, Bolt, Push. 3-color is quite common. A lot of people are moving to 2-color, but even like the 2-color Golgari deck is running Maelstrom Pulse and just Dismember and a wide suite of things, and all of these can answer what this deck is trying to do for its linear game plan. We did have a couple of games where we just exploded. That first game against Bant was just slaughtered. They didn't have any interaction for us, and we were just like, unblockable, you're dead. We still even struggled a little bit there, but that's mainly because of how sloppy the deck is. It's built very heavy to ends, like Bogle's is, where you just have to mulligan to find something, but unfortunately this needs critical mass, not just one creature that can stick around for a little bit and buy you time. There's no lifelink, but you are counting to 10. Power's here. This deck is established. I didn't play it right. I know I didn't. This deck is pretty decent, but it is falling out of meta because you lose the power of what a lot of this was doing. This deck also, if you can't tell, just scoops to Chalice on 1. There's nothing you can do about it. If there's a Chalice on 1, it's just GG's, move on. Like, you probably don't even play game 2. It's that bad for you. But count to 10. All the 10 things. Also, a lot of these pieces are used elsewhere. Kind of like Bogle's, you have the Noble Hierarchs, you have a lot of the mana base. Inkmoth can go into any of the affinity strategies, Hardened Scales. A lot of usable pieces, and a lot of this is actually sideboard tech. The cost of Might of Old Crows isn't like $30 anymore. I think it was back when this deck was meta, but it's been reprinted. This is probably another one that you could go spike a meta with, but I think it's a little on the expensive end, and it's... If you enjoy this gameplay, you probably know you enjoy this and probably enjoyed the video, but it's not necessarily for me. It is for some people, though, and thanks for watching. Sorry I'm rambling. All right, well, have a good one, everyone.